The morning sky over New York City changed forever when the ships arrived. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the deck of the aircraft carrier Freedom, watching through his binoculars as massive alien vessels descended through the clouds like falling mountains. The ships were bigger than anything humans had ever built, their dark metal hulls reflecting the sun in strange patterns that hurt to look at. Jake had been in the Navy for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The alien ships moved with perfect silence, positioning themselves above every major city on Earth. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, all of them now lived under the shadow of these enormous craft. Dr. Lisa Harper rushed through the corridors of the Pentagon, carrying files that contained humanity's first analysis of the visitors. She had spent her entire career studying the possibility of alien life, but her wildest theories had not imagined this. The ships had appeared without warning, emerging from what seemed like empty space just beyond the moon. "They're not attacking," General Bobby Hayes said during the emergency meeting in the Situation Room. President Helen Carter sat at the head of the table, her face pale but determined. Around her, the most powerful people on Earth tried to make sense of what was happening. The answer came 3 hours after the ships had taken their positions. Every television, radio, computer, and phone on Earth activated simultaneously. The signal bypassed every security system, every firewall, every attempt to block it. When the transmission began, the entire world heard the same voice speaking in perfect English, Chinese, Spanish, and dozens of other languages at once. "I am Ambassador Zextar of the Galactic Council," the voice said. The creature that appeared on every screen was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. Its voice was calm, almost bored. "Your species has been selected to join the Galactic Tribute System. You will comply with the following requirements." Jake felt his hands shake as he listened to the demands. The alien spoke as if humans were already defeated, as if resistance was not even worth considering. 20% of Earth's population would be taken to work in alien mining colonies across the galaxy. Half of all human technology and scientific knowledge would be surrendered immediately. Earth's military would be disbanded, and the planet would be governed by aliens appointed by the Council. "You have 72 hours to begin compliance," Ambassador Zextar continued. "Any attempt at resistance will result in standard pacification procedures. Your planet will be made suitable for Council oversight through the removal of hostile populations." The transmission ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. In homes and offices around the world, people stared at their screens in shock. Some cried, some prayed, some began packing, thinking they might be able to hide somehow, but others, like Jake Morrison, felt something different rising in their chests. It was not fear or despair. It was anger. Commander Roy Patterson joined Jake on the deck of the Freedom. Roy had fought in wars across 3 continents and had never seen an enemy he couldn't face. "They talk like we've already surrendered," he said, spitting into the ocean. "Like humans are just another species they can push around." President Carter's response came 6 hours later. She spoke from the White House, but her words were broadcast to secret locations around the world. Jake recognized some of the people standing behind her, military officers he had heard about but never met, scientists whose names appeared in classified reports. "The Galactic Council believes they understand humanity," President Carter said. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the fire in her eyes. "They have measured our technology and found it lacking. They have counted our weapons and found them few. They have studied our history and seen our conflicts, but they have made one critical mistake." The president paused, and Jake felt every person on Earth lean forward to hear her next words. "They have never encountered the depth of human stubbornness. They have never tested human refusal to bow down. They measure us by our machines and our armies, but they have never measured what drives us to build those machines and train those armies in the first place." Behind the president, Admiral Steve Collins stepped forward. Jake had heard stories about Collins, the man who had overseen Earth's most secret military projects for the past 20 years. Projects so classified that most government officials didn't know they existed. "For 50 years, Collins said, we have been watching the stars. We have been listening to signals from space, learning about what might be waiting out there. 15 years ago, we detected their scout ships. We have been preparing ever since." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. Preparing? How could Earth prepare to fight ships the size of cities? Dr. Linda Matthews appeared on screens in military bases around the world. She was Earth's leading expert on warfare, a woman who had studied every conflict in human history. "Every species the Galactic Council has conquered submitted after seeing their power," she said. "Every one of them made the logical choice to surrender rather than face extinction. But logic is not humanity's strongest feature." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. Jake received orders he had never expected. Coordinates for a rendezvous point beyond Neptune, where ships he had never heard of were waiting. Ships with names like Defiance, Liberty, and New Dawn. Captain Maria Sanchez contacted Earth from somewhere in the outer solar system. Her transmission was encrypted, but her message was clear. "The Council fleet is exactly where we expected it to be. They're following the same pattern they used on 47 other worlds. They think they know what comes next." As the deadline approached, Jake found himself aboard a ship he couldn't quite believe was real. The destroyer Courage was sleek and deadly, built with technology that seemed impossible for human science. Around him, other ships moved through space with silent purpose. They demanded tribute, Admiral Collins said over the communication system. "They wanted us to kneel, to give them our people and our freedom. They expected us to make the smart choice, the logical choice." Jake checked his weapon systems one more time. The quantum disruption cannons were powered up and ready. He still didn't understand how they worked, but the scientists assured him they would work when needed. "Instead," Collins continued, "they're about to learn why humans have spent 10,000 years fighting each other. They're about to discover that we've been practicing." The Council ships hung in space above Earth, waiting for surrender that would never come. Ambassador Zextar sent his final warning. "Submit now or face the consequences." President Carter's response was broadcast to the galaxy. "Come and take it." The war for Earth's freedom was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the universe what happened when someone threatened their home. Ambassador Zextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Authority, watching the primitive planet below. In his 300 years of service to the Galactic Council, he had overseen the integration of 17 different worlds. The process was always the same. First came the show of force, then the demands, then the inevitable surrender. These humans puzzled him. Their response to the Council's ultimatum had been unexpected, but Zextar assumed it was simply the desperate posturing of a doomed species. No civilization with their limited technology had ever successfully resisted Council authority. "Begin standard pacification procedures," he ordered his weapons officer. The plan was simple: destroy a few major cities to demonstrate Council power, then wait for the revised surrender. Captain Jake Morrison felt his stomach drop as the alien weapons charged up. From his position aboard the destroyer Courage, he could see the energy building in the massive cannons of the enemy fleet. In minutes, millions of innocent people would die unless something happened. That something came from the most unexpected source. What the Galactic Council had dismissed as primitive communication satellites suddenly came to life. The small objects orbiting Earth began to unfold like metal flowers, revealing structures that defied every assumption about human technology. Admiral Steve Collins had spent 15 years preparing this moment, and his secret was about to shock the galaxy. Dr. Richard Kane watched from his laboratory deep beneath Colorado as his life's work activated. The quantum disruption technology he had developed was supposed to be impossible. Every physicist in the galaxy agreed that primitive species couldn't manipulate the fundamental forces of space-time. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first volley from Earth's hidden defenses struck the Council fleet like lightning from a clear sky. Weapons that bent space itself tore through alien shields as if they were made of paper. The Eternal Authority shuddered under impacts that its sensors couldn't even properly measure. "What is this?" Zextar demanded, his calm demeanor cracking for the first time in decades. His tactical officer stared at the readings in confusion. "Sir, the energy signatures don't match anything in our database. These weapons are using principles we've never encountered." Captain Maria Sanchez led her squadron of fighters from the hidden base on Luna's dark side. The ships under her command looked like nothing the Council had ever seen. Sleek craft that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. Lieutenant Amy Roberts scored the first kill, her missiles tracking through dimensions the aliens didn't know existed. "Target destroyed," Amy reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she had just accomplished. No human had ever killed an alien before, but her quantum-tipped missiles had just vaporized a Council fighter, as if it were made of smoke. The battle raged across Earth's orbital space with an intensity that surprised everyone involved. The Council fleet, designed to intimidate primitive species into surrender, suddenly found itself fighting for survival against weapons that violated their understanding of physics. Dr. Lisa Harper monitored alien communications from her xenobiology center, translating the panic in the enemy transmissions. "They're completely confused," she reported to Admiral Collins. "They keep asking each other how we developed quantum manipulation before achieving faster-than-light travel." The answer to that question revealed humanity's greatest advantage. While other species had followed predictable technological development paths, humans had approached the problem backward. Instead of trying to copy alien technology, Earth scientists had developed entirely new solutions. Commander Janet Pierce fought her ship, the Independence, through a storm of alien fire. The battle cruiser's quantum shields held against weapons designed to destroy entire cities. Around her, the combined fleet of humanity's secret navy engaged the Council forces with a coordination that came from years of hidden preparation. Captain Pete Johnson's assault carrier, Washington launched wave after wave of fighters against the alien formation. His pilots had trained their entire lives for this moment, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality of combat against beings from another world. "They're retreating," Johnson reported as several Council ships began pulling back from the battle. "The smaller vessels are breaking formation," but Ambassador Zextar was far from defeated. The Eternal Authority's main guns charged up for a devastating attack on Earth itself. If he couldn't maintain the illusion of Council invincibility, he would demonstrate their power through destruction. Dr. Christopher Bell had been studying alien technology since the first scout ships were detected 15 years earlier. His analysis of their tactics had predicted this moment. "He's going to try to crack the planet," Bell warned Admiral Collins. "It's their standard response when facing unexpected resistance." The massive energy buildup in the Council flagship's weapons was visible from Earth. Millions of people looked up at the sky, knowing they were about to die. Children held their parents. Lovers embraced. Soldiers prepared for the end. Instead, they witnessed something that would be remembered for 1,000 years. Captain Jake Morrison's destroyer Courage, along with 12 other human ships, positioned themselves between the alien flagship and Earth. Their quantum shields linked together, creating a barrier that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. When the Council's planet-killer weapon fired, the energy simply disappeared into folded space. "Impossible," Zextar whispered, staring at readings that made no sense. His most powerful weapon had been completely neutralized by ships that shouldn't have been able to survive in space, much less fight a galactic superpower. Admiral Collins opened a communication channel to the entire Council fleet. His voice carried the calm authority of a man who had planned for this moment his entire career. "Ambassador Zextar," Collins said, "you came here expecting to find a primitive species ready to submit to your authority. Instead, you found humans. We don't submit. We don't surrender. We don't kneel to anyone, no matter how big their ships are." The battle continued for 6 more hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Human weapons, impossible though they seemed, were systematically destroying the Council fleet. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds fell one by one to quantum disruption cannons and dimensional missiles. As the surviving Council vessels limped away from Earth, Zextar sent one final transmission to the Council High Command. His report would bring consequences that humanity wasn't prepared for. But in that moment, Earth celebrated its first victory against galactic tyranny. Dr. Linda Matthews analyzed the battle data with growing excitement. "We didn't just win," she told President Helen Carter. "We won decisively. We destroyed 12 of their ships and damaged most of the others. They're retreating to the outer system." But Admiral Collins knew the war was just beginning. The Galactic Council ruled over thousands of worlds and commanded fleets that numbered in the millions. Earth had won the first battle through surprise and superior technology, but the enemy would adapt. "Send word to all our hidden bases," Collins ordered. "Begin Phase 2 of Operation Starbreak. It's time to take the fight to them." As Earth's defenders prepared for the larger war to come, one thing had become clear to everyone in the galaxy. Humanity had announced its presence with a declaration that would echo across the stars. "We are here, we are free, and we will fight for that freedom no matter what the cost." 3 weeks after Earth's victory, The Galactic Council's response arrived in the form of 3 full battle fleets. Fleet Admiral Sandra White watched the approaching armada through the long-range sensors of her command ship, New Horizon. The alien vessels stretched across space like a moving city, carrying enough firepower to reduce planets to dust. 240 ships, reported her tactical officer, Commander Patricia Young, including 12 dreadnoughts and what appears to be a planet cracker. Sandra had fought in Earth's hidden space program for 10 years, but she had never seen anything like the force approaching their solar system. Ambassador Zexitar had learned from his previous defeat. This time, the Council brought overwhelming numbers and their most advanced technology. The humiliation of losing to primitive humans had sent shockwaves throughout the galactic government. No species had successfully resisted Council expansion in over 300 years. Captain Tony Martinez commanded the reconnaissance ship Explorer on a desperate mission beyond the outer planets. His orders were to locate and contact other species that might oppose the Council. Dr. Christopher Bell's analysis of captured alien databases had revealed something remarkable. Humans weren't the only ones fighting back. The first contact came in the asteroid belt around Proxima Centauri. Captain Martinez nearly jumped out of his chair when his sensors detected ships hiding among the rocks. Ships that weren't human or Council-built. Ships that had been waiting and watching. Unknown vessels, this is Captain Martinez of the Earth Ship Explorer. He transmitted on multiple frequencies. We are seeking contact with any species opposing the Galactic Council. The response came in heavily accented but understandable English. Earthship, you will follow our guidance beacon to the hidden station. Your species has done something we thought impossible. We must speak. What Captain Martinez found in that hidden asteroid base changed everything. The Cathara had been fighting the Council for over 2 centuries, using hit-and-run tactics and guerrilla warfare to survive. Their leader, War Commander Thekral, was a scarred veteran who had seen his homeworld burned by Council forces. You fought them in open battle, Thekral said through the translation device. His species resembled large cats that walked upright with golden fur and intelligent green eyes. You fought them above your homeworld and won. No species has achieved victory in direct confrontation with Council forces since the Great Rebellion. Commander Young, serving as Earth's diplomatic representative, learned that the galaxy contained dozens of resistance cells. The Javan contributed stealth technology that could hide entire fleets. The Mordai offered detailed intelligence on Council military procedures. The Velnari brought their expertise in quantum communications, but all of these species had been reduced to hiding and running. None possessed weapons capable of standing against Council battle fleets in direct combat. Until now. Dr. Rachel Ward worked alongside alien scientists in the hidden base, sharing human quantum disruption technology for the first time. The reaction from her colleagues was immediate and intense. This is revolutionary, said Dr. Shekva, a Cathara physicist. Your species developed weapons that manipulate space-time without understanding the mathematical principles behind them. You simply built devices that worked. We call it human engineering, Rachel replied with a smile. If something needs to work, we make it work. We worry about understanding it later. The alliance that formed in those secret meetings would reshape the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the scattered resistance movements had hope. Human technology, combined with alien knowledge and experience, created possibilities none of them had dared imagine. Admiral Steve Collins coordinated the defense of Earth while simultaneously supporting resistance operations across 12 star systems. Human weapons and equipment began appearing in the hands of freedom fighters throughout Council territory. Each successful attack weakened the Council's authority and inspired others to rebel. The Council's response was swift and brutal. Admiral Kethvor, commanding the approaching battle fleets, had orders to make an example of Earth that would discourage further resistance. The human planet would be reduced to a lifeless rock, its population scattered across the galaxy as slaves. Captain Jake Morrison prepared his ship, Courage, for what seemed like an impossible battle. The odds were overwhelming. 3 Council fleets against Earth's secret navy and whatever alien allies they could muster. But humans had never been good at accepting impossible odds. All ships, this is Admiral Collins, came the transmission as the enemy fleets entered the solar system. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every species that has ever dreamed of freedom. Today we show the galaxy that tyranny can be defeated. The battle began at the edge of the solar system, where the Jivan stealth ships struck first. Council vessels vanished from their formations as invisible attackers hit them with human-made quantum torpedoes. The aliens had never faced weapons they couldn't detect until the moment of impact. Captain Maria Sanchez led a combined squadron of human and Cathara fighters through the enemy formation. The alien pilots flew with desperate courage, knowing this might be their only chance to strike back against their oppressors. Lieutenant Amy Roberts found herself flying wing to a Mordai pilot who communicated through color changes on his ship's hull. The space around Jupiter became a battlefield spanning millions of kilometers. Council dreadnoughts found themselves under attack by weapons that phased through their shields and exploded inside their hulls. Human battlecruisers worked alongside alien vessels in formations that seemed chaotic, but devastatingly effective. Dr. Lisa Harper monitored Council communications from her post on Luna. The enemy commanders were struggling to adapt to tactics they had never encountered. "They're panicking," she reported to Admiral Collins. "Their formations are breaking down. They don't know how to fight an enemy they can't predict." The turning point came when Captain Pete Johnson's carrier Washington launched a new type of weapon developed by human and Cathara scientists working together. The dimensional mines existed in folded space until activated, then appeared inside enemy ships without warning. Direct hits on 3 dreadnoughts, Johnson reported as massive explosions lit up the void. The mines are working exactly as designed, but the Council had one final card to play. Admiral Kethavor activated the planet cracker weapon mounted on his flagship. The massive device began charging up for a shot that would split Earth's crust and boil away its oceans. "All ships, priority target," Admiral Collins broadcast. "Everything we have at that flagship. We stop that weapon or we lose everything." The combined fleet of humans and their new allies concentrated their fire on the Council flagship. Quantum disruption cannons tore through layers of armor, while dimensional torpedoes collapsed sections of the massive ship. But the planet cracker continued charging. Captain Morrison made the decision that would be remembered in songs for generations. The Courage, badly damaged from hours of fighting, turned toward the enemy flagship on a collision course. "This is for Earth," he transmitted, as his ship's quantum reactor began overloading. The explosion when Courage struck the Council flagship was visible from Mars. The planet cracker weapon detonated while still charging, creating a tear in space-time that swallowed both ships and damaged dozens of others. In the aftermath of the battle, the surviving Council forces retreated in complete disorder. 2 of the 3 battle fleets had been destroyed or crippled. The galaxy's most powerful military force had been defeated by a coalition of species they had dismissed as primitive. News of the victory spread through underground networks across Council territory. On 100 worlds, oppressed populations began to believe that freedom was possible. The age of Council dominance was ending and a new era was beginning. But Earth had paid a price for victory. Good people had died defending their world and their newfound allies. As the wreckage of the battle drifted through space, Admiral Collins knew the war was far from over. The galaxy had noticed humanity, and nothing would ever be the same. 6 months after the great battle at Jupiter, the galaxy was in chaos. Admiral Kevin Clark stood on the bridge of the newly constructed Battle Station Freedom Base, watching reports flood in from across Council territory. Rebellions were breaking out on dozens of worlds, and the Council's authority was crumbling faster than anyone had dared hope. The secret was the weapon factories Dr. Marcus Thompson had spent the month since the battle working with scientists from 12 different species to mass-produce quantum disruption technology. Hidden facilities throughout the galaxy now churned out weapons that could challenge Council supremacy. Captain Julie Andrews commanded the heavy cruiser Constitution as it approached the Veltari system, where the Council maintained a major slave processing center. Her ship was part of the first joint human-alien liberation fleet, carrying weapons and equipment to free an entire world. "Sensor contact," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Larry Miller. "Council patrol ships are moving to intercept." The enemy vessels were the same type that had once terrorized primitive worlds into submission. Now they faced opponents who could fight back. The battle above Veltar Prime lasted only 3 hours. Council ships that had seemed invincible just a year ago fell to quantum weapons fired by former slaves who had learned to use human technology. The Liberation Fleet landed on the planet's surface to find millions of beings from dozens of species. all waiting to join the growing rebellion. War Commander Thekral of the Cathara had become humanity's closest ally in the fight against the Council. His knowledge of galactic politics proved invaluable as the resistance movement grew into something larger. The Council rules through fear, he explained to Admiral Collins during a strategy meeting. Once that fear is broken, their empire will collapse like a house built on sand. The turning point came when the rebellion reached the core worlds. These were the oldest and most heavily defended Council territories, planets that had been under alien rule for over 1,000 years. Everyone assumed they were too thoroughly controlled to rebel. Commander Patricia Young led the diplomatic mission to Alterus Prime, a world that had been the Council's administrative center for an entire galactic sector. What she found there shocked even the most optimistic resistance leaders. The entire population is ready to revolt, she reported back to Earth. They've been sabotaging Council operations for months, waiting for someone to provide them with weapons. They're not victims anymore, they're an army waiting to fight. Dr. Rachel Ward worked with local scientists to establish quantum weapon production facilities. On Alterus Prime, the planet's advanced manufacturing capabilities meant they could produce more weapons in a week than the hidden asteroid bases could make in a month. The Council's response was predictable but ineffective. Grand Admiral Zethmol, the highest-ranking military officer in Council space, gathered the largest fleet in galactic history to crush the rebellion once and for all. 500 ships, including the massive fortress ship Dominion, converged on the rebellious core worlds. Captain Tony Martinez, now commanding the advanced scout ship Liberty, watched the Council fleet assemble from a hidden position in the outer system. They're bringing everything they have, he reported to Admiral Clark. This is going to be the biggest space battle in galactic history. The rebels were ready. Human technology had been adapted and improved by alien engineers who understood galactic warfare better than Earth's military leaders. Cathara stealth ships carried quantum torpedoes into the heart of the enemy formation. Javan vessels used their cloaking technology to position dimensional mines throughout the battlefield. Dr. Christopher Bell had been studying Council military doctrine for months, looking for weaknesses in their tactics. His analysis revealed something crucial. The Council had never fought an enemy that could match their technology while using completely different strategic principles. They're trained to fight other galactic civilizations, Bell explained to the Joint Command Staff. Species that follow predictable patterns use familiar weapons, think in ways they understand. But human tactical thinking is completely alien to them. The battle began when Admiral Clark gave the order that would echo through history. All units, this is Admiral Clark. Today we don't just fight for our own freedom, we fight to free every enslaved world in the galaxy. Attack. The space around Alterus Prime exploded into the largest battle the galaxy had ever seen. Human battlecruisers fought alongside alien vessels in formations that seemed chaotic, but proved devastatingly effective. Council ships found themselves under attack from directions they hadn't known existed. Captain Maria Sanchez led her fighter squadron through a storm of enemy fire, her human pilots flying wing to alien warriors from a dozen different species. Lieutenant Amy Roberts, now a squadron leader herself, coordinated attacks with Mordai, pilots who communicated through telepathic links. The Council's massive fortress ship, Dominion, seemed unstoppable as it carved through the rebel fleet with weapons that could crack moons. But Dr. Thompson had prepared a surprise specifically for the Council's most powerful vessel. Activate the quantum resonance projector, Admiral Clark ordered. The device was humanity's newest and most dangerous weapon, a machine that could create standing waves in space-time itself. The effect on the Dominion was immediate and catastrophic. The fortress ship's hull began vibrating at frequencies that tore apart its molecular structure. Within minutes, the most powerful vessel in the Council fleet was shaking itself to pieces. Impossible, Grand Admiral Zethmol transmitted as his flagship disintegrated around him. No species possesses such weapons. The mathematics alone should be beyond primitive understanding. That's your problem, Admiral Clark replied on the same frequency. You keep assuming we're primitive. We're not primitive. We're human. There's a difference. The destruction of the Dominion broke the Council fleet's morale. Ships that had never retreated from any battle began withdrawing from the fight. The rebellion's victory was so complete that Council forces across the galaxy began surrendering without being attacked. Within days of the battle, Entire sectors declared independence from council rule. Governors who had enforced alien law for centuries suddenly found themselves leading free governments. The galactic empire that had ruled for over a millennium collapsed in a matter of weeks, but victory brought new challenges. President Angela Foster, who had succeeded Helen Carter after the elections, now faced the task of helping organize a free galactic government. Dozens of species with different needs and cultures had to learn to work together. The easy part is over, Admiral Collins told the assembled leaders of the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Winning the war was simple compared to winning the peace. The former council worlds needed new governments, new laws, new ways of relating to each other. Some species had been enslaved for so long they had forgotten how to be free. Others wanted revenge against their former oppressors. A few tried to establish their own empires to replace the council. Dr. Linda Matthews studied historical examples of successful transitions from tyranny to freedom. Every liberation movement faces this challenge, she told President Foster. The revolutionaries who can win wars aren't always the people who can build lasting peace. The solution came from an unexpected source. The liberated worlds chose to model their new government on the alliance that had defeated the council. Human principles of individual freedom combined with alien concepts of collective responsibility created something entirely new in galactic politics. Commander Larry Miller established the first interspecies justice court on the former council capital world. His job was to ensure that the transition to freedom didn't become a cycle of revenge and chaos. Within a year of the council's defeat, the Galactic Liberation Alliance had evolved into something unprecedented, a true democracy spanning hundreds of star systems. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to work together as equals. The humans had started the rebellion to protect their own world, but they had sparked something much larger. They had proven that freedom was possible even against impossible odds. They had shown the galaxy that no empire, no matter how powerful, could survive if enough people refused to accept its authority. As the first year of galactic freedom ended, children on 100 worlds learned a new lesson in their schools. They learned that somewhere in the galaxy lived a species called humans, who had looked at the most powerful empire in history and said the two words that changed everything: no thanks. 2 years had passed since the fall of the Galactic Council, and the galaxy looked nothing like it had before. President Angela Foster stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Democratic Assembly, looking out at delegates from over 300 worlds. Beings who had once been slaves now voted on laws that affected billions of lives across the stars. The transformation had not been easy. Admiral Kevin Clark still commanded the Liberation Defense Fleet, which spent most of its time stopping conflicts between newly freed worlds. Some species wanted to settle old grudges with their former oppressors. Others tried to grab territory or resources that had belonged to the Council. A few attempted to create their own little empires. Captain Julie Andrews patrolled the border regions in the Constitution, now serving as a peacekeeping vessel rather than a warship. Her crew included humans Cathara, Jiven, and members of a dozen other species working together to maintain the fragile peace. Distress signal from the Proxima colony, reported Lieutenant Larry Miller from his position at the communications station. Pirates are attacking the mining station. The pirates were former Council naval officers who refused to accept the new order. They raided shipping lanes and attacked isolated colonies, trying to carve out territories where they could rule as the Council once had. But they had made the same mistake as their former government. They underestimated human determination. The battle above Proxima was brief but decisive. The pirate ships, designed to intimidate civilian populations, stood no chance against vessels, equipped with quantum weapons and crewed by beings who had learned to fight for their freedom. Dr. Marcus Thompson watched the engagement from his laboratory on the research station New Horizon. He had spent the past year working with scientists from across the galaxy to develop peaceful applications for quantum technology. The same principles that powered humanity's weapons were now being used to revolutionize medicine, agriculture, and space travel. The quantum healing devices are working better than we hoped, he reported to Dr. Rachel Ward on Earth. We've eliminated 17 different diseases that plagued the former slave worlds. The Mordai life extension treatments are being adapted for use by all species. The greatest success story was the world of Cathara Prime, the homeworld that War Commander Thekral had thought lost forever. Council forces had poisoned the planet's atmosphere during the original conquest 2 centuries ago. Now human environmental technology combined with Cathara biological expertise was slowly healing the world. "My cubs will breathe clean air," Thekral told President Foster during a diplomatic visit to Earth. "Something I never dared hope for. Your species gave us more than weapons. You gave us back our future." But the greatest challenge facing the new galactic government was not military or technological, it was cultural. Species that had been isolated for centuries now had to learn to work with beings completely different from themselves. Commander Patricia Young headed the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Program, which had become one of the most important institutions in the galaxy. Her teams worked to prevent misunderstandings that could lead to conflicts between worlds. The Veltari consider direct eye contact an act of aggression, she explained to a group of human diplomats preparing for their first alien assignment. The Javen communicate partly through scent markers that humans can't detect. The Mordai see colors we don't have names for. We're not just building a government, we're building a civilization. Dr. Christopher Bell studied the social changes sweeping across the galaxy. Former slave worlds were experiencing cultural renaissances as suppressed traditions emerged after centuries of hiding. Art, music, literature, and philosophy that had been banned by the Council now flourished in ways that amazed even their creators. "It's like watching a garden bloom after a long winter," Bell told his colleagues. "These species are remembering who they were before the Council tried to erase their identities." The humans found themselves in an unexpected role. The species that had started the rebellion were now seen as the galaxy's defenders of freedom. When disputes arose between worlds, they often asked for human mediation. When new technologies needed testing, human volunteers stepped forward. When dangerous missions required volunteers, humans were usually the first to raise their hands. Captain Tony Martinez commanded the exploration ship New Frontier, leading missions to map the galaxy beyond the former Council territory. His crews discovered worlds that had hidden from galactic civilization for thousands of years, choosing isolation rather than risk Council attention. "They're coming out of hiding now," Martinez reported after contact with the isolationist Tellan Confederation. "Word has spread that the Council is gone. Species we never knew existed are asking to join the Democratic Assembly." The most surprising development was the fate of the former Council species themselves. The Veltar, who had been the Council's primary enforcers, were among the most enthusiastic supporters of the new democratic system. Ambassador Zextar, the same being who had demanded Earth's surrender 3 years earlier, now served as the Veltar representative to the Assembly. "We were prisoners too," Zextar explained to President Foster during a private meeting. "The Council system gave us power, but it also trapped us in roles we never chose. Your rebellion freed us as much as it freed the slave worlds." Dr. Linda Matthews published her analysis of the galactic transformation, titled "The Human Revolution: How One Species Changed Everything." The book became required reading in schools across hundreds of worlds. "Humans didn't just defeat the Galactic Council," she wrote. "They introduced concepts that the galaxy had forgotten, that government serves the people, not the other way around. That freedom is not something to be granted by rulers, but something that belongs to every thinking being by right." The economic changes were as dramatic as the political ones. The Council's tribute system had concentrated wealth and resources in the hands of a few ruling species. The new democratic trade networks allowed prosperity to spread to worlds that had been kept poor for centuries. Captain Maria Sanchez commanded one of the new civilian trade vessels that carried goods and ideas between worlds. Her ship, the Friendship, employed crew members from 20 different species and visited markets that spanned the galaxy. "My grandmother fought in Earth's first space battles," Sanchez told her young Kithara navigator. She never could have imagined this, humans and aliens working together, exploring the galaxy as partners instead of conquerors. Lieutenant Amy Roberts had left the military to become one of the galaxy's first interspecies pilots, flying missions that required understanding of multiple alien technologies. Her skills, developed in combat against the Council, now served to connect distant worlds and isolated populations. The 3rd anniversary of Earth's first victory was declared Galactic Freedom Day, celebrated on hundreds of worlds with festivals that combined traditions from dozens of species. Children who had been born into slavery now played games that their parents had only dreamed of. But perhaps the most important change was the simplest one. In markets and schools, on space stations and farm worlds, beings from different stars worked together without thinking about which species they belonged to. The galaxy had learned that differences in appearance or culture were less important than shared hopes for freedom and prosperity. President Foster's final address to the Galactic Democratic Assembly summarized what humanity had given to the galaxy. We did not come to rule. We did not come to conquer. We came to prove that freedom is possible, even when it seems impossible. We came to show that ordinary beings working together are stronger than any empire. The galaxy was no longer divided between rulers and subjects, between the powerful and the powerless. It was a community of equals, each contributing their unique strengths to the common good. Admiral Collins, now retired but still respected throughout the galaxy, was asked by a young reporter what he thought humanity's greatest contribution had been. We taught the galaxy to say no, Collins replied. For 1,000 years, species accepted council rule because they thought they had no choice. We showed them that there's always a choice. Sometimes the choice is hard. Sometimes it's dangerous, but it's always there. The stars that had once looked down on a galaxy of slaves now saw a civilization of free beings, each choosing their own path through the cosmos. And at the center of it all was a small blue world, whose inhabitants had looked at the greatest empire in history and decided they would rather fight than kneel. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly how humanity liked it.